In January of 1992, my mom took my sister and me to visit my great-grandma Fanny. We didn't know it then, but it would be the last time we saw her in life. My great-grandma was 94 years old. I was 6 and my sister was 9. She was living in the Jewish home in Los Angeles. For years, she had visited the Jewish home regularly, traveling by bus from her small apartment in Encino to bring home-baked cookies, as she said, to the old people. Now, she was one of the residents herself. She was a wonderful baker, a good card player, and a warm-hearted and generous soul. I remember that every day she put change in a glass jar that she kept in her kitchen for tzedakah. She also made the best chopped liver in the world. My great-grandmother was born in Bessarabia and immigrated to the United States when she was 8 years old. She came through Ellis Island and grew up in Bayonne. That day, in the Jewish home, she was far from herself, lying in bed, tired and frail and frightened. I don't think she knew where she was or who she was or why she was in such pain, but she did know we were there. She said some Yiddish words to my sister and me, which I didn't understand. I had heard her say them every time we came to visit her. My mom told me later what she was saying, a Leben auf dir. She was wishing us a long life, a good life. I think she knew in some way that her life would go on in us. My great-grandmother died later that month. It's customary during this high holiday season to visit the graves of our loved ones, parents, grandparents, and other dear ones we have lost. This custom, called kever avot, goes back to earliest times. The Talmud describes a long-standing practice of visiting the graves of righteous people at times of trouble and gives 2 reasons for doing so. First, because it reminds us of our mortality and the need to improve our deeds while we can. And second, to ask the dead to intercede on our behalf. The tradition of visiting the cemetery before the high holidays or between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur began in the 14th century. And it makes sense that we would look for a way to connect with our dead during this sacred season. It's a time of soul searching when we think about our lives and yearn for renewal. And we know that the people who gave us life or who shared our life helped to shape the lives that we have lived. Our lives are grounded in theirs. In so many ways, they made us who we are. And there's another reason, simpler and more personal, that leads us to think of the ones we have loved and lost during these holy days. We miss them especially during this time. Our hearts ache as we recall those who once came with us to synagogue, sat by our side at services, joined us for holiday meals, smiled and hugged us as they wished us Shana Tova. For some of us, the loss is recent. For others, it happened long ago. Some of our loved ones were torn from us suddenly, shockingly. For some, it was a gradual, painful fading away. But all of them are with us now. Our dead come back to us in these days of remembrance. Listen to a beautiful and mysterious tale from the Talmud. Rabbi Eliezer is ill, and his teacher, Rabbi Yochanan, comes to visit him. He finds Eliezer lying in a dark room. He rolls up his sleeve, and his radiant arm illuminates the darkness, a symbol, perhaps, of his spiritual power. He sees that Eliezer is crying, and he tries clumsily at first to comfort him, but Eliezer remains silent. Finally, he tells Rabbi Yochanan why he is crying. I weep, he says, for all of this beauty which is destined for the dust. Rabbi Yochanan answers, yes, for that it is fitting to cry. And the 2 of them weep together. After a while, Rabbi Yochanan asks, are your sufferings welcome to you? Rabbi Eliezer replies, neither they nor their reward. Rabbi Yochanan says, give me your hand. And here the story ends. He gave him his hand, and he raised him up. Teacher and student weep in shared sorrow because death is real and it's inescapable. Hai shufra, says the Talmud. Hai shufra devale ba'afra. All this beauty is destined for the dust. To be human is to be mortal and to know it, to know that life will end. We feel this with special intensity today. Eliezer's poignant lament evokes the haunting words of our liturgy. Each of us is a broken shard, withering grass, a shriveled flower, a passing shadow, a fading cloud, a fleeting breeze, a vanishing dream. Yom Kippur is meant to remind us that all that we love will someday be gone, and someday our seats too will be empty. If we truly took those words to heart, we too might cry and feel ourselves lost in the dark. Our souls might tremble with fear and grief for all that we've lost and will someday lose. For what, after all, is the point of living when everything sooner or later crumbles to dust? What is it that can raise us up from the pain of loss and bring us back to life? I'm no authority on these grave questions. Like many of you, I am a mourner, still grieving for people I love who have died, though the loss is now many years old. I still miss my Saba and Safta, who were so precious to me, Francis and Jack. I miss my beloved teacher, Baruch Link, for whom our first son, Oz Baruch, is named. I even miss my great-grandma Fanny, though I knew her for only a short time. I'm no expert on how to face loss and mortality, but I can share with you today some stories that have helped me and given me strength. Here's the first. It comes from the closing chapters of our most ancient text. Moshe Rabbeinu is 120 years old, and God has told him that his life will soon end. Vayelech Moshe vaydaber et hadvarim ha'ele al kol Yisrael, says the Torah. Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel. And our sages wondered, why does it say Vayelech, he went? Why not just the usual wording, Vaydaber Moshe, Moses spoke? Where did Moses go? According to the Midrash, he went to speak these words means that he performed a careful and deliberate act. Moshe went to take leave of this world in a journey of farewell. The French medieval commentator Chizkuni describes Moshe walking through the Israelite camp, going to the people tribe by tribe to speak with them about his impending death. Moshe assures his people that they have nothing to fear. He encourages them to face the challenges to come, and he asks them to give their loyalty to their new leader, Joshua, and to follow him to the land. Chazak ve'amatz, he says to the people and to Joshua, repeating the words for emphasis. Chazak ve'amatz, be strong and courageous. Perhaps he meant that they should be brave and bold in the military battles that await them. But the Midrash understands these words differently. Chazak b'Torah, be strong in Torah, says Moshe. Ve'amatz b'ma'asim tovim, and be courageous in good deeds. Here's what strikes me. For 40 years, Moshe has loved this people. He's guided them and fed them, worried over them, fetched over them, defended them in the face of danger. It has been a difficult journey. Sometimes he's borne the brunt of their rage. Sometimes they provoked him to rage, but he's never left his people. And now he knows that he must. We can sense the weight of the sorrow that he bears. But even now, at the end of his life, Moshe chooses to give to his people. He gives them hope for their future, assuring them that they'll go forward in strength without him. And he gives them strength for their journey, teachings that will sustain them in all the years to come. Moshe instructs his people to gather every 7 years during the festival of Sukkot to hear the Torah read aloud. Through this mitzvah of gathering, Hakel, they'll become a community guided by those sacred words. And every time the people gather to hear words of Torah, they'll hear Moshe's voice again, and he'll be with them. The gift of Torah that he gave lives on after him. And so it is with us. When we lose the ones we love, our dead must leave us, but we're not left bereft. Their enduring love, their words, and their teachings sustain us when they're gone. My second story comes from a midrash on Proverbs 31:10. Eshet chayil mi'imtza, a woman of valor who can find. In describing what it means to be a woman of valor, the midrash tells the story of Bruria, the learned and compassionate wife of Rabbi Meir. Once, while Rabbi Meir was teaching on a Shabbat afternoon, both of his sons died from the plague that was affecting their city. When Rabbi Meir returned home at the end of the day, he asked his wife, "Where are our sons?" She handed him the cup for Havdalah, and he said the blessing. Again he asked, "Where are our sons?" She brought him food, and he ate. When he'd finished eating, Bruria said to her husband, "My teacher, I have a question. A while ago, a man came and left something precious for me for safekeeping. Now he's come to take back what he left. Shall I return it to him or not?" Meir responded, "If someone is holding another's property, does the law not require them to return it to their owner?" Then Bruria took her husband's hand and led him to where their 2 children lay on the bed. He began to weep, crying, my sons, my teachers. You were my sons by birth, but you were also my teachers, for your Torah brought light to my eyes." "Remember what you told me," said Bruria gently. "If something precious has been left with us for a time, we must give it back when the owner comes for it." Then she recited these words from the book of Job, "Adonai natan, Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach." Adonai has given, Adonai has taken back. Blessed be the name of Adonai. And with these words, our sages say, she brought him comfort. Surely Rabbi Meir and his wife continued to cry for their sons they had lost, for no words make grief go away. But Bruria, with tenderness, sensitivity, and yes, with valor, imparts to her dear husband the very worst news any parent will ever hear, and she gives him a way to go on. First, she offers him food and drink, for he'll need sustenance to hear this news. Then she speaks to her husband's heart in the language he understands, the language of Torah. She reminds him with utmost gentleness that their children were never fully theirs. They were a precious gift from the Creator, lent to them for a time, to be cherished and treasured as long as their children's lives were in their care. Bruria does her best to refocus her husband's mind, and her own as well, on accepting this deep truth and on gratitude for the gifts they received from the children entrusted to them. The theology of this story will be to some of us problematic, but it's not really a story about theology. It's about extending a hand to someone who's grieving and helping to raise them up. It's about how we view the people in our lives, especially the ones who are closest, and how we cope when our time with them ends. It's a story that centers our attention on life's impermanence and directs our hearts towards the beauty of all that we were given. To have had a spouse who was the love of your life, a parent who supported and encouraged you, a brother or sister who was your best friend, an adoring grandparent in whose eyes you could do no wrong, a dear friend you could always trust, a beautiful and precious child. Surely these were blessings for all the years we knew them, and blessings they remain. There are so many gifts, so many gestures of kindness and care left for us to treasure when our loved ones die. Driving lessons from your dad, stories told by your grandfather, the taste of your grandmother's kugel, the loving touch of your mother's hand on your feverish forehead, the gift of an education, sweaters and homemade scarves, cookies baked, rings exchanged, books and music that were part of your life together, memories of holiday meals, hugs and kisses, warmth and closeness and family, jokes they told to make you smile, sardonic commentaries on the news, life lessons that stay in your heart, your birthday remembered without fail every year, phone conversations with someone who was interested in everything you had to say, someone who worried about you and looked after you, eyes that lit up when you came into the room, a special look meant only for you. Not all of our memories are beautiful. None of our relationships were perfect. But in most of them, even the difficult ones, there are gifts to recall if we seek out the good that was there. It's incredibly hard to make the spiritual journey that Bruria made, from unbearable anguish to acceptance, and then to tender remembrance, from the sharpness of grief to the gentle comfort of gratitude for the life for the one you loved. And yet, there are those who manage to walk this path. I'm in awe of their strength and their courage. Roger Rosenblatt, whose daughter died in 2007 at the age of 37, describes his long, slow, and anguished journey to a more tranquil place. He writes, "In this, my third stage of grief, the past miraculously and mercifully does not feel painful. The photograph of her that brought me to tears a few years ago now gives me a smile. I'm peaceful with the memory of my child. I have no idea how this happens or why. Maybe the mind, tired of its punishment, rebels. Maybe it simply tires of looking inward. It sounds harsh to say, but after a while, grief becomes an act of self-indulgence. You're so steeped in your own suffering that you forget to acknowledge the person you had with you for however many years. The person you loved, who loved you. Once you change your focus from the self to the other, grief turns to gratitude, and gratitude to celebration. Your child is with you again, resurrected by the happiness you both shared. Or to be fair, the transformation may be inexplicable, quasi-accidental. In every period of heartbreak, beauty intrudes, inevitably, mysteriously. It just happens. Someone dear to us dies, and we must go on without them. We carry the sustenance of their words and teachings. We acknowledge the blessing of the gifts they gave us. And one thing more, we are heartened by the radiant beauty that they brought to the world. Consider what the Talmud says. Righteous people are even greater and more powerful in their deaths than in their lives. How can that be so? How can death bring not a diminution, but an expansion of the person who is lost? Our sages teach that it's because the influence of good people extends not only to those who knew them, but to all the generations that follow. In their last days, the dying may be fragile and weak, but the legacy they leave imbues them with beauty and strength. So we say, Zichronam livracha, may their memory be a blessing. May their best qualities live on when they're gone, bringing blessing to all who remember them. May they stay with us through the values they passed on, through the Torah, tzedakah, and good deeds they inspired. When Oz and I bake cookies and share them with friends and his teachers, we're blessed by the sweet memory of the bakers who came before us. For good people can be more powerful in death than they were in their lives. They dwell in our memory larger than life, unforgettable, imperishable, their imprint on us indelible. Their sweetness and their spirit, their wit and zest for life, their integrity, their honor, their intelligence, kindness, and resilience endure down the generations, touching children and grandchildren, and not just their own posterity, but the children and grandchildren of all whose lives they shaped, colleagues and students and friends. And in this, perhaps, we find some consolation for our broken hearts, that the goodness of those we loved lives on, that it will blossom someday in new babies and take root in distant places and bring more beauty into the world. There's a good reason why the Talmudic tractate about the laws of death is called smachot, a word that means joys. This is not just a euphemism, for there is joy in having loved deeply, in having been deeply loved. There is joy in having been privileged to care for the precious jewels we were given. Today, on the holiest day of the year, we make the spiritual pilgrimage to Kever Avot, recalling all that we've shared. We remember the gifts we received from those we so cherished. Some shared a lifetime with us. Some lived on this earth for only a brief and precious time. Some found it easy to give and to share their love. Some found it hard, but they did the best they could. Small or large, tangible or intangible, the treasures we received add luster to our days, filling our eyes with tears of gratitude and joy, filling our hearts with strength for the future. Blessed are those who depart this world while leaving behind a treasure, and blessed are we who remember, enriched and inspired by all they bequeathed us. Though all this beauty is destined for dust, there is a beauty that survives death. May our dear ones rest in peace, and may we embrace their abundant gifts. Chazak ve'amatz, let us be strong and courageous in remembering them.